Our next speaker is responsible for the overall direction of Rydell within the Americas. Riedel within the Americas. With respect to technology and business development, working closely with customers, channel partners, and the product management team. His contact list is enormous. Presenting the session, media production will never be the same. Please welcome SVP of Technology and Business Development of Rydell Communications, Riedel, Rick Seegull.
Thank you. How are we doing there? So I guess I don't have to introduce my name because that was already done. So what I want to do is introduce a product that we just introduced at IBC, so straight across the pond, and now here. Media production will never be the same, as he said. So it's the next generation of processing and mixing solution for broadcast audio. So let's set the stage, and stage is a key word here. The demand for content is growing throughout broadcast productions. So clients need to produce more with either the same amount of resources they have or a lot of times with less resources. So Riedel as a company basically needs to create a solution to help our partners with. So we all know about the big show. We all know about creative mixing and the console and the hardware platform it requires and the stage box. But there's a lot of other audio processes that happen. It's not just about the big show. Okay, so there's a lot of supplemental audio programming that has to be done. So basically, a lot of voiceover booths, a lot of off-site commentary. And besides that, there's a lot of down mixes that are required for headphone feeds, automated news events, and I should have wore glasses here. The automated news events and feeds. Okay. So basically, hey, look at that. It's nice and big up here. Audio maintenance as opposed to creative mixing. So that's the key thing here. So there's a lot of processes within the audio chain that just needs a little bit of hand-holding and doesn't require any creative mixing, and that's what we want to address here. So the problem is that to do all these voiceover booths, you have staff that has to maintain all these different voiceover booths, and the problem is what happens when nobody's in there. So it's very hard to take that out and then bring it to a remote site. So it's basically bad resource planning. So what is SAME? SAME stands for a Smart Audio and Mixing Engine. And the concept here is it's a flexible audio mixing and processing that you spin up and down where and when it's required. And in granularity, that's customized for the application. So you're not taking a large mixing desk to do something that's only got 4 microphones. A lot of our customers, they might be doing something like the Sunday football games, and then at the tail end of that console where they're doing the creative mixing, they're doing a lot of these just different voiceover processes that they're not really paying attention because they have to pay attention to the creative mix. And then somebody's usually alerting them when there's a problem, which is too late at that point, and then they have to go down to the other end of the console, change those mixes, and then go back to their creative mix. So SAME is something that can actually assist with this. So basically, we break a traditional mixing console into pieces and then reassemble it as a purpose-built mixer. So no wasted resources, able to view and maintain multiple jobs, basically all at once, which is very important. So again, one person can monitor all these different events that are going on, and all with a single operator. So what are the system elements that SAME requires? And this is where that word stage, I said, don't forget that word. There's 2 COT servers that are required. One is the stage server, which does all the orchestration. It does all the adjustments of the audio and the configuration. And then there's the SAME server, which is a higher class server and basically with very low latency. And this is where all the audio processing is done. To go over a couple of the technical specs, the first thing is latency. Latency had to be driven down as low as possible. So the server that we use there, basically, or that we specify for this, from going from backplane to a network plugin, which is what we're talking about here, back to the backplane is 8 samples. So that's 0.6 milliseconds. If you look at, and this is very important, to make sure that everything is real time. So if we look at, when echo starts to happen, that's about 5 milliseconds. So we've actually gotten these servers down to 0.6 milliseconds. So you're looking at 600 microseconds of throughput. So flawless control, execution, processing, and changing the audio parameter while immediately hearing the result. That's extremely important when we talk about this. So again, it all runs on COTS servers. And I gotta look up here. Scalable from small to large productions with compute power. Native SMPTE 211030 in and out. Okay, so we're bringing 211030 in, and then basically acting on these audio streams, and then sending it back out into the environment, all in 211030, and of course, full support for 2022-7 hitless redundancy. And then the processing engine support, so we can actually do redundancy on the stage server, which is the configuration server. That requires 3 servers. So a primary, a backup, and a database manager. And then each one basically can act as the other one. So if any of those goes down, the other 2 will take over. And then we can do 1+1 redundancy on the audio engine, and we can actually add audio servers, additional audio servers to do load balancing as well. So you're not doing everything on one server. So this is all about different apps, okay? So network plugins is the first one, but we'll also be able to carve out sections of a traditional mixing console to create purpose-built mixers, which we call here super tools, which we'll talk about. And then there's all different types of generators that you can actually patch in, different meters and analyzers as well. So let's start with network plugin. A network plugin is one input, one output, and some type of process that's going to act on the audio. Okay, so it's a single input, single output, and then a function in there. We currently have over 22 network plugins, so things like simple delays that doesn't need somebody there. You have a radio feed going out, you just need to dial in a 3 or 7 second delay on that, forget it, set it and forget it, okay? Other things like parametric EQs, compressor limiters, de-essers for the vocals, level perfect, basically making sure that your loudness requirements are all there to specification to your EBU R128. And something that I really love is the spectral match. Spectral match, we can basically take a fingerprint of audio as it's coming in, so you try to set it in a perfect environment. But then after you got that, there's 14 different frequency bands where it's doing a Fourier analysis to see what is the makeup of that audio within each of those bands. And then what you can do is, let's say that the commentator gets too close to the mic and we get a little bit of too much low end, it'll automatically re-EQ that so it's to where that fingerprint of the spectral match is. Same thing if they get too far away or if they tend to turn their head and not be totally facing the microphone, this will adjust it. And you can control how much of that adjustment is going to take place so that it doesn't seem extreme when it actually goes to do this. You won't get any breathing effects. Very important. A lot of times there's lots of different down mixes that are going on. We don't have stereo headphone feeds, surround headphone feeds. So you have to take all those different surround formats and bring it down into either a stereo or mono feed to actually go to people's headsets. And then also up mixes, taking something that might be a stereo source that's coming in, but we want to bring it into a surround environment, and you can do all those individual controls through the distribution graph. So again, we currently have 22 of these network plugins, which are all either in the mono, stereo, or surround environments. To insert these network plugins, we basically have a cross-point router. So you go to your input and your output, right-click on that cross-point, and then up will come a selection of all your network plugins. And you don't choose which network plugin you want with this. You don't buy network plugins. You actually purchase processing power to run multiple of these individual plugins, okay? So when you get into the same ecosystem, you get everything that SAME offers. You just basically buy procs or tokens to decide how many of those down mixes you need, how many of those graphic EQs, how much of those super tools. So once you actually assign it here, if I double click on that cross point, up comes the configuration window, and I can do all the adjustments then, and then knock it back down. So we all know what this is, right? It's a mixing console. We got one over here. We got one here. We got them all over the place. But that's not the point of this, okay? What we can do here is break apart this console into multiple strips or just multiple elements of this to make it a lot easier and not tie up a whole entire work surface here. So the other thing is what if I want to take one network plugin and then add another network plugin in there? So I'm doing a delay, but I also have to do some dynamics on that signal as well. I'm not going to want an input through that delay to an output, to another input, to another network plugin. So what I can do is create different channel strips. And we have all different types of pre-configured channel strips. So you can have one with very limited network plugins. So this one just has an insert and a delay in it. But then we can actually add a bunch in, and you can choose which type of input strip that you want this signal to go through, depending upon the type of job or the type of people or the type of environment that this audio is coming from. So again, we can actually add all the network plugins in here. And the cool thing is here, so if you look at that strip on the right-hand side, we have all these different network plugins, and they're all in a specific order. But you can just, with a click of a mouse, you can actually change where you want each individual network plugin to be inserted in that audio chain. And you can actually do that while it's happening, and then it'll recalculate where it's actually falling into that stream. Not only can we do this for input channels, but we can also do it for group channels. So we can actually have a light one, again, that just has the insert and delay, or we can have one that has a whole bunch of different network plugins in there. Same thing for the aux buses, main channel bus types. So we can do that for standard mono strips, stereo strips, or 5.1 strips. And there's a whole bunch of different types of channels that you can choose from, or mixer strips. At the first release of this product, it'll be a bunch of canned strips, but eventually you'll be able to create the type of strip you want and the type of super tool, which we'll talk about in a minute here. So to actually activate this, once it's in the channel strip, if I click on the left-hand side here, I don't know if you can see, oh, okay, we can't see that. If we click on the left-hand side of those individual plugins on that strip, that will enable or disable that plugin. If I click on the right-hand side of that, it will open up all the parameters so I can make those parameters and then tuck it back down. Again, the idea is not to keep these all active and open in front of you. The idea is to be looking at multiple of these jobs and only interfacing with it when you actually are alerted that you need to interface with it. We can also create different types of snapshots. We can either right-click on the actual network plugin to either store or recall a snapshot, or the whole individual channel strip to do multiple configuration of multiple network plugins simultaneously. So some of the higher level mixing features, this is where we get into the Super Tool. Super Tool is a great piece here. So think of, let's say I have a voiceover booth with 4 commentators in there. Just think of it as basically one section extracted from that large format console that we basically have and we deploy just for that instance, okay? So we can basically have the 4 channel strips. We can choose which type of outputs, whether they're going to be stereo, whether it's going to be surround format, whether it's going to be both. Bring in other program audio that it's going to get mixed in and mix those 4 commentators together. Now, if we hover over any of these tiles, we're actually going to get some light controls. So if I just need to mute, do a PFL, talk to the talent, do an auto trim or things like that, I can just hover over that and then grab one of those tools. And I can do that for each of these individual tiles. So if I need to do something on the output side or the program audio or the full mixer, I can do that. If I double click on any of these tiles, it will open up the full control for that instance, whether it's the channel strip, the 4x2 mixer, or the output of that. And then, of course, you can get into all the individual plugins for that channel as well. Other things that we can do are generators and players. So we can do mono. These are all mono. So we can basically do a sine wave. We can do pink noise. We can do white noise. We can also choose different types of meters. So if I want to do loudness meters, maybe I even want to do a spectrum analyzer. We can actually do that here. So there's all different types of meters and analyzers that you can choose from. And it does have a real-time full spectrum analyzer that's in there. Another important thing also for many feeds that are being played out is basically silence detectors, not just, so where we can control the threshold of that box and basically get notified if something is below that level that we preset it for. So you know whether that commentator's microphone is actually functioning or not, and they didn't just take a long break, have nothing to say, which most commentators always have something to say. But if there's a long bit of silence below a certain level, you'll be alerted for that. Now, to bring all this home, the power of this tool is being able to monitor a whole bunch of these different processes simultaneously, so that you can have one person maybe overnight or even, while the main mixer is doing the Sunday game, all of those saps that are being done, all those down mixes that are being done are taken away from the A1 that's mixing that show and handed off to somebody else that can monitor all of these in a single screen. And this is very, very important for SAME. So we can basically see, if you look at each of these tiles, there's a 30-second histogram that shows the audio that's coming in, so you can see what happened if you didn't hear it, if it's not tied into your monitor. It won't be with this many jobs running simultaneously. You'll be able to see what the history was, and you can also get presets. You can create presets to be alerted for certain functions that you want to be alerted about. Maybe the level's getting too high, silence detector, too much de-essing going on, or need for de-essers. So basically, these tiles can get a boundary that will turn red or yellow to alert you that something's going on. And then what you can do is you can do three different things. If I'm being alerted for something, I can double click it and it'll tie it into the monitoring section, which is off to my right here. And so you'll be able to hear it, and it'll also open up all of the controls. Or maybe I just want to check in on something, so I just want to right click on it and tell it to just go into the monitor but don't open the controls. Or I just noticed that, you know what? A couple of seconds ago, I had a level hit that was a little bit too loud. I just want to open it up. I don't need to listen to it. Let me just bring that level down, or set the audio leveler in there to start acting on that, or set a limiter in there, and then tuck it back away and not have to bring it into my monitoring section. So the audio pilot window is fully customizable. So I can basically, as I create all these different network plugins or channel strips, they'll appear to me. And then basically I can just click and drag. So on the bottom part is what hasn't been dragged into an audio pilot window, and I drag it up into that audio pilot window. We can also create multiple pages here. So if you look down, we have 5 different pages here. And if you notice, some of those pages are red. So we can either group these pages to a specific show, or we can just have them run straight through, fill up one page, add another page. And the big thing here is that you can get alerted when you're not on a specific page. If you notice, some of those page icons down on the bottom are red, indicating that it needs my attention. I can quickly get over to it, make my adjustments, and then go back to what I want to do. Besides this is we have to create an easy way to create, and no matter where it's required, to create a monitoring environment. So we basically have what we call a network stream adapter. We have all different types, which we'll talk about a couple of them here. So that's basically the box below the speakers there. You can basically do a stereo feed, or you can add another box in to do surround feeds, or we have other boxes that will complement that for surround feeds. And it also has a headphone output and a microphone input. You can actually get into a web control page to get into all aspects for the audio in your headset or your microphone, and you can actually put different dynamics onto your microphone that are actually built into the box. They don't actually come from SAME. So your audio environment, your monitoring environment, is from a very small external box that's very easy to set up. So that's the NSA 006. And we actually will be introducing 5 different of these network stream adapters to facilitate not just monitoring, but there's some things, there's a party line one, and then the rest are like little throwdown stage boxes. So these are all analog or AES-3 digital audio, auto sensing. So if it sees a clock, it'll automatically go to AES-3. Otherwise, it'll be in the analog domain. And the output is full SMPTE 2110-30. And all of the boxes support 2022-7 hit list redundancy. So I started to mention it before. So the way the product works is the software is free. What you're doing is you're purchasing the processing power. You're purchasing the tokens that will, so you're going to figure out when we have a configuration page, how many down mixes from stereo or from 5.1 to stereo, how many delays you're going to need, how many DSs, how many level matches, how many super tools. And each of those require a certain amount of these processing tokens. And from there's 2 different types of licenses that you can purchase. These are all perpetual licenses at the moment. So you start with 1,000 tokens, and that can actually do a lot. But for a large network, especially sports network, where they might be doing 20 different overdubs into different languages, you're probably going to need more processing power. So you can buy in packages of 200 proc tokens at a time, and you do multiples of that to give what you need. The good thing is that once you're at one level, if let's say you start maxing out that server, that audio processing server, you can actually add another server in real time, and it'll do auto balancing, load balancing between those 2 servers. And you can also buy and add on more procs as required. So if you have a big job coming up and you're starting to max out your procs, you can basically call in. We'll send you a file, then you load those procs in, and then it'll increase the capability of the number of different applications that you can do. Just talking a little quick here. Wanted to get a lot in those 20 minutes. But does anybody have any questions? Okay, please take a picture and scan that code so you get up to the website. Okay, thank you very much.